Truth, reason, and common sense. This is the voice of reason with Andy Hooser.
As you know, we've been talking about this Antifa, the domestic terrorist organization, but does it go deeper? And there was one individual during these testimonies that we had seen during the roundtable with President Trump and some, cabinet members that were there as well, battling this organized crime in the nation. One of them that's been following the money. And I want to get right to him here on the program.
Let's go to the Hooser Media Hotline.
That's right. Really excited to have on the program. He is the director of research for the Government Accountability Institute. He is also author of the book Controligarchs, Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Globalist Plot to Dominate Your Life. Really happy and honored to have on the program Mr. Seamus Bruner. Seamus, how are you, my friend?
I'm so glad to be here with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on here. Like I said, yours intrigued me the most because other individuals, other journalists, were reporting on what Antifa's been doing, trying to talk to the individuals. They get beat up, and it's obviously a bad situation. But you guys, it sounds like, have been working on this for a long time because you haven't been there just trying to be a journalist reporting on the actions of Antifa, but going a step deeper, trying to figure out where this is coming from in the first place and following the money. And I gotta say, I love the terms that you guys have coined this with Riot Inc. and calling it the protest industrial complex. That is brilliant. Talk about what you guys have been working on here.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I had to give credit to those journalists because they're putting their lives on the line, really.
Yeah.
And I'm just at a desk with a spreadsheet crunching numbers. but both are very important. So yeah, we call it the Riot Inc., the protest industrial complex, because it kind of functions like a corporation. I mean, there are the foot soldiers and the boots on the ground, people like Antifa. But there's so many more divisions. They have a communications and PR division. That would be like a lot of the corporate press. Jimmy Kimmel running cover saying there's no such thing as Antifa.
Yeah.
That's just total PR spin. But even more important than that, it's got, the legal division getting these boots on the ground out of jail and back onto the streets as quickly as possible. And those would be groups like the National Lawyers Guild. The ACLU is there in yellow vest to record only exculpatory evidence. So they'll make sure they get the cops, cracking down but they'll leave out of the out of the clip the fact that a mortar had just been shot at the cops and they've been being bashed. So it's total lawfare on that front to get the radical extremists out of jail back on the streets. But we think the most important is the investors in Riot Inc. And so at the Government Accountability Institute, we follow the money to the top. We find networks of NGOs. I wrote a book on this called Controligarchs, Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Plot to Dominate Your Life. People like Soros, everybody knows Soros, and God bless Donald Trump for invoking RICO, because this is an enterprise. This is a criminal organization. These people out there committing violence and bloodshed and arson and all the rest, assaults on law enforcement. But Soros is not the only one. It's not his Open Society Institute. There are so many others just like Soros. So you've got the Arabella funding network. You've got the Tides funding network, even the Rockefeller funding network. And those are just the domestic ones. Then you've got these foreign people. Neville Roy Singham, for those who don't know, he is behind a lot of the pro-Hamas demonstrations in New York that got violent, the anti-ICE riots earlier this year in Los Angeles, where they were summoning Waymo self-driving cars and then setting them on fire and assaulting law enforcement in Los Angeles. And Neville Roy Singham is a really bad hombre. We've found over $100 million coming from these funding networks, the Rockefeller, Arabella, Tide, Soros funding networks, flowing into every aspect of the protest industrial complex Riot Inc., from the boots on the ground to the legal divisions to the PR and all of the rest.
That's so insane. So this is way bigger than just Antifa, which has been kind of the latest flavor that we've seen. And I think they started around the first Trump administration. This has been going on for a while then. And like you said, $100 million+ going into this organized crime, organized protest syndicate just to stir the pot a little bit, it seems like, in society.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think I mentioned at the White House to President Trump that even more shocking is than the private dollars going into Riot Inc. are the public dollars, your and my tax dollars, We found more than $100 million that go from various agencies, of course, USAID being one of them, but many, many others. For the Department of Education gives money to the Tides funding network. And, they got a ton of COVID PPP loans that got totally forgiven. And so the thing that's interesting about when public dollars flow into a large organized enterprise like this is that there are a lot more tools. So there's already a couple of tools labeling Antifa as a domestic terror organization. And while you're not going to get these, the other the people who collude with Antifa on terrorism per se, what that designation does is it lights a fire under the federal agencies, and I witnessed it firsthand, where they can go and look at, who's funding it and who's providing aid and comfort and material support to these, alleged domestic terrorists. Other tools, though, when they're receiving public dollars, number one, the agency that is sending grants to the Tides entities or the Soros entities or the Arabella or Rockefeller entities, those agencies can say, hey, we gave you a grant. Now let's take a look inside your books and see if you are using that grant for the purposes it was intended for. Mm-hmm. And if not, that can lead to criminal investigation. It also brings in the Office of Management and Budget, Russ Vought, the Grim Reaper. The OMB can start looking at entities that receive taxpayer funding and investigating whether that money is being put to good use. And then, of course, you've got FBI, DOJ, and then two more agencies. And I was actually stunned. I didn't even know that President Trump would be at this roundtable. They just said, could you come brief the White House? I figured it'd be, maybe the staff or something. Yeah. But I was stunned to see Secretary Noem, Director Patel, and also the other agencies, though, is Treasury Department can freeze and seize assets if criminal activity is found. And also the IRS can yank the tax-exempt statuses of any entities that are using tax-exempt funds, these 501c3s and C4s, for criminal purposes. So a lot of tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Yeah, you were at a roundtable with some really high-profile individuals that sound like they want to make this a priority number one for them to clean this up. We're talking with Seamus Bruner. He is the director of research at the Government Accountability Institute. You mentioned these non-governmental organizations, these NGOs. I've never been a fan of NGOs. I don't know why they're even allowed if they're being subsidized and paid by the government to do things the government's not technically allowed to do. That's just kind of weird to me. When we dive deeper into this, and you've related a lot of this to the Soros and to Arabella and to the Rockefellers and these different groups here, are we literally starting to expose what we call the deep state or the shadow government or I guess the Illuminati or the parallel government, whatever it is, whoever's working behind the scenes that fund the protesters, that fund left-wing progressive activists, that fund different candidates that really stir the pot in this nation that are complete radicals? Are we beginning to expose where all of this is coming from?
Oh, you're very smart, Andy, because I'll let you and the audience in on a little secret here. If you start picking, when you follow the money from the violence and the chaos and the criminality on the streets, via the Antifa channel, what you're going to find is that these NGOs, it's exactly as you just said, but it's not just, and all the deep state activities. They have the entire ballot harvesting machine and the entire so-called get out the vote. And even registering non-citizens to vote, that they are engaged in that type of activity. They're also engaged in resettling illegal migrants and fighting to keep illegal migrants in this country, criminal illegal migrants who should be deported. That they're behind funding that. In fact, and then of course the whole policy complex where they're pushing these either whether it's wokeness in schools and DEI. Or it's the climate alarmism and the attacks on our energy infrastructure. Yeah. And a lot of these groups, by the way, who use these tactics are the very ones like the Sunrise Movement and this Just Stop Oil movement, where they go and they disrupt the highways and they throw paint on priceless works of art, or they disrupt interstate commerce, which is a criminal activity. You're going to find all of it. You're going to find a whole mess of things, attacks on our country of every kind.
Yeah, it is so wild and kind of exciting, the fact that we're finally getting down to where we've been looking for a long time, trying to expose and understand what's going on behind the scenes. And I seem to remember, and I'm sure you remember this as well, the interview that Elon Musk did on Joe Rogan's podcast when he was still with Doge, talking about NGOs and how he can't even talk about some of the findings that he's had at Doge because it could put him at risk. Is this what you're talking about? Is this the threat that we're seeing behind the scenes that Elon Musk didn't want to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was referring mostly to USAID because that was the beating heart of the funding the deep state NGOs. But what we're finding here when you start peeling back the layers on Antifa and who's funding Riot Inc., you'll find that there's a whole other ecosystem beyond just the USAID one. So this is stuff that is unsettling. There's a lot of people with big, powerful people with a lot to lose. And by the way, President Trump mentioned that, and I thought that was very interesting at the beginning of his remarks at the beginning of the roundtable. He said, it's people, I've even had dinner with some of them. And I believe he was referring to, he was there with Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. These are characters in my book, Control Oligarchs, and Jeff Bezos. I mean, some of them, not all of them are huge funders of this Riot Inc., but Bill Gates specifically is a major financier of the Arabella funding network. Now, I will say it was recently announced that Bill Gates would be cutting his support for Arabella funding network, which of course then trickles down to Riot Inc.
We're having a fascinating conversation with Seamus Bruner. He's the director of research at the Government Accountability Institute, also author of the book Control Oligarchs, as we trace the money of Antifa and the deep state, the progressive movement. Where's it all coming from? The NGOs, the different organizations, George Soros, Arabella, Rockefellers, and so much more. Let's go down the theoretical road here for just a moment, Seamus, and let's talk about that. Let's say we find this money and we're able to trace it to these NGOs or different organizations. We're able to impose the RICO charges on these individuals for crimes against humanity or illegal activity or whatever that, we can go after them for, and we bust them. We dry up the funding. What kind of nation would that look like when we don't have paid protesters any longer? We don't have AGs and legal systems that are being funded by these individuals. We don't have radical progressives that are stirring the pot. What kind of nation would we look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, Trump 2.0, the 47th administration, they promised a golden age, and this is how you get it. I mean, you have to end. I think we face a golden age if they can actually wrap this up, arrest these protesters. Now, it's going to be a long fight. I don't think they're going to totally give up. They're going to suck up to President Trump. They're going to pretend like they're not funding this stuff. They're going to say, oh, whoops, we didn't know. I don't think they'll be able to get away with saying we didn't know, because one thing that they're funding are the bail funds. I mean, they're not just funding the lawyer groups, they're funding the bail funds. And so it's like, how did you not know that you were bailing violent rioters and what the administration is calling domestic terrorists? How did you not know that you were bailing them out of jail? That's specifically what the bail fund exists to do. So they got a hard case to make, but I think they'll try to make it. And again, communism is not necessarily going away. I mean, we're seeing them rear its ugly head. So it might get a little darker, with this violence we're seeing rising up. But if you get tough on the people who think that you can say, "Hey, fascist, catch," an allusion to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, those guys need to be rounded up. That's incitement. And it's, the harder the administration comes down on these Marxists who openly want to overthrow this country, the better we'll be, and the sooner more people will, shape up.
Yeah, well, you're right. And is that as you poke the bear and you get closer to the truth, then they'll start lashing out even more. So it's going to get darker before it gets lighter, but we have to continue to purge this out and expose what we've been knowing for a very long time to be happening in society. And that leads me to my last question, Seamus, as we run out of time here. But the PR of what this is going to look like in the media from the Democrats as we dig deeper into this hole to figure out what's down here is the fact that they're going to use this as Donald Trump going through his retribution list like they had with James Comey and how they're all innocent victims. Is that what we get to expect from the mainstream media coming up soon?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that. I mean, the same thing's going on right now with the deporting of violent, criminal, illegal aliens. It's when the entire country, basically, it was like 80%. Both sides agreed that illegal immigration is a problem. A lot of people think Trump should go even further, and I mean, he's just focusing on the violent criminals right now. I mean, he's going after more, but there's a lot of people on the right who think that, we need to get these deportation numbers up. But right now, the media is like reporting all these polls, whether they're fake or real, because people believe the media for whatever reason. They're saying that people think he's going too far on immigration. And just one case study on how much the media is just a total propaganda spin machine is like Maryland Dad. 2 words, Maryland Dad. You have this guy who's an alleged narco trafficker, possible human trafficker, not a good guy, allegedly beats his spouse. And you've got the left just saying, oh, he's just a Maryland dad. Well, he's headed to Uganda, and I think the administration just keeps their foot on the gas. The media is crumbling. I mean, you look at the ratings; they're not going to be around much longer, pushing these lies. And then one last thing I'd say, Andy, is why this is going to be such an uphill, long battle is because look at the schools. The schools are really raising up the next generations of Marxists, and you saw after Charlie Kirk's assassination, just the staggering number of teachers who are shaping the next generation's minds. It's kind of scary. Like we need to get the schools under control, and we need to make sure that children are not being raised up in a Marxist ecosystem, a Marxist, just trained to be anti-American type. Yeah. So those are things we really need to get under control: is the education and making sure that we continue to show and that the mainstream press are just completely lying.
It is definitely a work in progress, and we have a lot to do, but the work that you guys are doing and what we're doing to expose this is going to be really exciting. Seamus, we appreciate the time, my friend. We are out of time. We got to get you back on the show and do this again real soon. Keep up the fight with what you guys are working on.
Thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Seamus Bruner, he is the Director of Research at the Government Accountability Institute and author of his book. We are out of time now. We'll do a lot more of this when we come back. Before you know it. Until then, be your own voice of reason. We'll see you on the radio. Bye.